It's the most unpredictable era in sports entertainment, from corporate power plays to locker room wars. This is the WWF Attitude Era. The show opened with Billy Gunn going one-on-one with Taz. The Outlaws came into this match riding high, still the reigning tag team champions, and by all accounts, the most dominant team in the division. For most of the match, Taz managed to keep Gunn grounded, wearing him down with submissions and suplexes. But as always, Road Dogg's presence at ringside became a factor. Billy Gunn hit the Fameasser and scored the pinfall, with Road Dogg celebrating like they'd just added another title defense to their record. The victory itself was typical DX, technically effective, morally questionable. After the bell, things took a darker turn. The Outlaws didn't just take the win, they made an example out of Taz. Both men launched a post-match assault, beating Taz down in the middle of the ring. It was a clear message, another reminder that DX's control over the tag team division extends far beyond just their championship belts. But then, the arena erupted. The crowd came alive as Mick Foley made his shocking return to the WWF. Foley hasn't been seen in months, sidelined after years of punishment and a falling out with management. But tonight, he was back. Foley charged to the ring, chasing off the Outlaws to one of the loudest ovations of the year. Backstage, Kurt Angle was shown in conversation with Mr. McMahon. On the surface, looked like a simple meeting between two allies, but it quickly became clear that Angle had an agenda. Angle began subtly undermining Commissioner William Regal's authority. He pointed out what he called questionable decisions Regal has made in recent weeks, matches that didn't go in the company's favor, talent being given opportunities they didn't deserve, and a general lack of what Angle referred to as discipline and structure. Angle framed it all in his usual self-righteous tone, portraying himself as someone looking out for the WWF's best interests. But the subtext was obvious. He was planting seeds, trying to convince Vince that maybe he should be the commissioner instead. Later in the night, Kurt Angle made his way to the ring in what can only be described as a full-blown publicity stunt. The Olympic hero strutted down the aisle as promotional dollar bills rained from the rafters, each one printed with Angle's face and the slogan, "Vote Angle, the People's Commissioner." The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly negative. Heavy boos echoed throughout the arena as Angle basked in his own spectacle, grinning proudly and waving to the audience like a politician on the campaign trail. He didn't even need a microphone. The stunt said it all. This was his way of announcing his campaign to replace William Regal as WWF Commissioner. The night's main event saw Chris Jericho challenge Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF Championship, a blockbuster match booked by Commissioner William Regal himself. With Regal's leadership under scrutiny after recent controversies, this was clearly an attempt to steady the ship, to remind everyone that the company's biggest matches still happen under his watch. Austin and Jericho put on a hard-hitting, high-energy contest that swung back and forth from start to finish. As the match reached its climax, Austin managed to hit the stunner and retain the title after an exhausting fight. The crowd roared as the referee rolled out of the ring to retrieve the championship belt, but something was wrong. The belt was missing. The referee looked around in confusion, signaling to ringside staff, while Austin stood in the ring waiting, visibly irritated but unaware of what was coming. Then, from out of nowhere, a figure emerged from underneath the ring. Before Austin could react, Raven blindsided him, blasting the champion with the missing title belt. The crowd fell silent, the referee frozen at ringside as Raven stood over the fallen Austin, the title clutched in his hands. No explanation, no words, just a chaotic end to the show. Week 2 opened with Triple H delivering a backstage promo directed squarely at Mick Foley. The game made it clear that he hasn't forgotten the past, reminding everyone of his brutal history with Foley, from their legendary battles years ago to the countless scars left behind. He didn't waste time getting to the point. He warned Foley to stay out of DX's business, calling his recent return nothing more than a nostalgia act looking for relevance. He claimed that DX doesn't need to deal with washed-up heroes trying to relive their glory days, and that if Foley keeps inserting himself where he doesn't belong, he'll regret it. In typical Triple H fashion, though, the challenge came with a dose of arrogance. He offered Foley a match, but not tonight. Triple H announced that their showdown would take place next week on Raw, casually noting that he won't be available this evening due to a photo shoot with Fisherman Weekly. The line drew plenty of heat backstage and underscored just how smug and untouchable the game feels within DX's power structure. The Hardcore Championship was on the line next, as Hardcore Holly defended against Kane in what quickly turned into an all-out brawl. From the opening bell, both men wasted no time taking advantage of the hardcore rules. Chairs, trash cans, and anything not nailed down became fair game. Holly showed why he's one of the toughest competitors in the division, bringing the fight straight to the Big Red Machine, but Kane's raw power eventually proved too much to handle. After absorbing every shot Holly could dish out, Kane caught him with a devastating chokeslam to score the pin and capture the hardcore title. But the celebration didn't last long. As Kane stood over the wreckage, the arena erupted. Eddie Guerrero stormed the ring from behind, steel chair in hand. Under the 24/7 rule, the hardcore championship can be defended anywhere, anytime, and Eddie knew it. He cracked Kane from behind, knocking the monster to one knee, then hit him again, this time driving him face first into the mat. With the referee still present, Eddie seized the moment, diving into a quick cover. Just like that, Eddie Guerrero, through sheer cunning and incredible nerve, stole the hardcore title right out from under Kane. After weeks of subtle manipulation and public grandstanding, Angle spoke with a calm, measured tone, far different from his usual arrogance, telling Regal that he'd been too focused on competition and that maybe he'd gone about things the wrong way. Instead of trying to take Regal's job as commissioner, Angle said he wanted to work with him, proposing to become Regal's right-hand man, his assistant commissioner. On the surface, it seemed like a peace offering, but Angle's demeanor told a different story. To prove his loyalty, Angle suggested that he and Regal team up next week in an official match against none other than the Brothers of Destruction. Angle claimed it would be the perfect way to show he's got Regal's back, both as a partner and as a colleague. Regal hesitated at first, clearly unsure of Angle's intentions, but ultimately agreed to the idea. The main event of Week 2 featured Raven, fresh off his shocking attack on Stone Cold Steve Austin last week, going up against a mystery opponent handpicked by Commissioner William Regal. Given the rocky history between Regal and Raven, and Regal's open disdain for Raven's chaotic anti-establishment persona, this was clearly meant as punishment disguised as an opportunity. Raven looked uneasy but confident, pacing the ring as he waited to see who Regal had chosen. The lights dimmed, the crowd stirred, and then the roar of an engine filled the arena. The mystery was over. It was The Undertaker. Riding down the ramp on his motorcycle, the American Badass had answered Regal's call. Raven's expression said it all. He knew he was in for a fight. To his credit, Raven didn't back down. He actually put up a solid fight, showing grit and resilience against the much larger Undertaker. But just as the contest was heating up, the arena went berserk. Stone Cold was here. Austin stormed down the ramp, slid into the ring, and without hesitation, dropped Raven with a thunderous Stone Cold stunner. The crowd went bananas, remembering what happened the week before when Raven stole the title and laid Austin out cold. This was pure revenge. The referee immediately called for the bell, disqualification. But The Undertaker wasn't amused, clearly unhappy that his match had been interrupted. Even though the decision was already official, Undertaker wasn't done. He hoisted Raven high into the air and delivered a crushing last ride in the center of the ring. The message was clear. Nobody interferes in The Undertaker's business. Week 3 kicked off with a long-awaited showdown between Mick Foley and Triple H, a clash years in the making. Ever since Foley's shocking return and his confrontation with DX, tension between the two has been brewing, and tonight it finally came to a head. Triple H made his entrance first, flanked by the entire DX entourage. Despite the odds, Foley came out swinging. The veteran brought his trademark reckless style, taking the fight straight to Triple H. For a moment, the crowd believed Foley might actually pull it off, that maybe, just maybe, the old hardcore legend had one more miracle left in him. But the numbers caught up to him. With DX constantly interfering, the momentum shifted. Triple H capitalized, delivering a brutal pedigree to put Foley down for the 3 count. After the bell, the ambush didn't stop. DX swarmed the ring, launching a post-match beatdown that left Foley defenseless. The crowd waited, chanting for someone to come to Foley's aid, but no one did. Backstage, cameras caught up with the new hardcore champion, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie looked relaxed, maybe a little too relaxed. That all changed the moment he turned a corner and came face to face with Kane. Eddie froze, the same man Eddie blindsided and stole the belt from 7 days ago. Just as it looked like Eddie was about to be crushed, Saturn appeared out of nowhere, blindsiding Kane. The unexpected assist gave Eddie his chance. He didn't stick around to thank Saturn. He sprinted off into the night, desperate to escape. Eddie may have escaped for now, but his luck won't last forever. Kane isn't finished, and when he catches up to him again, it might take more than a quick getaway to save him. Next up, the uneasy alliance between Commissioner William Regal and Kurt Angle was put to the test, as the two faced the monumental task of taking on the Brothers of Destruction. This match came after Angle's supposed change of heart last week, when he convinced Regal that he wanted to make amends and prove his loyalty. Regal, perhaps too trusting for his own good, agreed to team up with him, but deep down, everyone knew how this was likely to end. From the opening bell, it was clear Regal was in over his head. Kane and The Undertaker dominated early, using their power and size to overwhelm the Commissioner. Regal fought valiantly, landing a few well-timed shots and technical counters, but every exchange pushed him closer and closer to disaster. When Regal finally crawled toward his corner, desperately reaching for a tag, Angle stepped down off the apron. He shook his head, smirking, and backed away from the ring entirely. The crowd booed loudly. They saw it coming, but that didn't make it any less brutal. Angle had played Regal perfectly. Left alone, Regal had no chance. Kane and The Undertaker Undertaker made short work of him. As the Brothers of Destruction stood tall, Kurt Angle appeared on the stage laughing. He pointed at the ring, mocking Regal's defeat. Backstage, cameras caught sight of Debra, Stone Cold's wife, walking through the hallway, seemingly minding her own business. But something wasn't right. Just behind her, a shadow moved. Someone was lurking and waiting. Debra turned the corner, clearly sensing something was off, and when she finally spun around, she came face to face with Raven. Debra, startled and angry, shoved him back and told him off, snapping that he smells like a public toilet. Raven struck, planting Debra with a sudden even-flow DDT. The crowd gasped as officials and backstage staff rushed in, but Raven was already gone. Backstage, the tension reached a breaking point. Regal hesitated at first, clearly trying to choose his words carefully before breaking the news. There had been an incident with Debra backstage. He told Austin that she had fallen, but his tone made it clear that there was more to the story. When Austin pressed for details, Regal reluctantly admitted that Raven might be involved. That was all Austin needed to hear. The champion exploded, pacing the room, flipping over chairs, and yelling that he wanted Raven tonight, tomorrow, it didn't matter. Regal tried to calm him down, saying that the situation needed to be handled officially. After a few tense moments, Regal finally gave Austin what he wanted, a match. He declared that at No Way Out, it would be no holds barred. However, Regal then added one crucial condition. As a pay-per-view main event, the match had to be for the WWF Championship. Regal emphasized that he didn't want to give Raven that kind of opportunity, but company policy demanded that the top match on a major event be for the top prize. Austin didn't even hesitate. He accepted without a second thought, saying if Raven wanted to steal the title so badly, he'd have the chance, and he'd regret ever touching it. Week 4 opened with complete anarchy. A 6-man hardcore championship match featuring Eddie Guerrero defending against Taz, Devon Dudley, Steve Blackman, X-Pac, and Rikishi. Eddie Guerrero, ever the opportunist, tried to stay on the outskirts, picking his moments and letting everyone else destroy each other. The champion was smart, but visibly nervous. The hardcore title comes with a target on your back at all times, and Eddie knew it. Just as the chaos reached its peak, the arena suddenly went dark. Flames erupted from the stage, Kane's pyro. The crowd erupted as the big red machine marched toward the ring, his eyes locked directly on Guerrero. Instant panic. The 6 men in the ring stopped fighting. Kane climbed onto the apron, and Eddie didn't waste a single second. He bolted. Guerrero jumped the barricade and sprinted through the crowd, running for his life. Backstage, Mick Foley delivered one of his most passionate and emotional promos to date. He admitted that Triple H is a world-class performer, that's never been in doubt, but made it clear he has zero respect for the rest of the group, saying they're not fit to lace his boots, and that for too long, they've hidden behind Triple H's shadow and DX's power. Foley then dropped his announcement. He's challenging the New Age Outlaws for the WWF Tag Team Championships at No Way Out. Foley didn't hold back when addressing Taz either. He reminded everyone that he had Taz's back when DX attacked him weeks ago, but when Foley was on the receiving end, Taz was nowhere to be found. But Foley said he doesn't hold grudges, because at No Way Out, he won't need Taz. Foley said he already has someone else in mind. Someone with a little more backbone. The next match of the night featured Kurt Angle going one-on-one with Chris Jericho, a technical showdown with major implications heading into No Way Out. Earlier in the night, Vince McMahon officially announced that Kurt Angle and William Regal will face each other one-on-one at the pay-per-view, a decision that immediately sent shockwaves through the locker room. Regal, still embarrassed after Angle's betrayal last week, clearly took the announcement as motivation to strike back in his own way. As commissioner, Regal used his authority to make a very pointed statement. He booked Angle into a tough match against one of the best technicians in the business, Chris Jericho. The intent was obvious: weaken Angle ahead of their showdown, and maybe, just maybe, humble him a little in the process. Late in the match, Jericho managed to trap Angle dead center in the ring with the walls of Jericho. The crowd erupted as Angle screamed in pain, clawing toward the ropes. For a long, agonizing stretch, it looked like he might tap, but in classic Angle fashion, he gritted his teeth, fought through the pain. Angle pulled off the win, but he didn't look victorious. He looked hurt, limping slightly, clutching his back and leg after the grueling match. Regal's plan may have backfired in the short term, but he achieved his goal in another way. Angle is not walking into No Way Out at 100%. The main event saw Stone Cold Steve Austin unleash his fury in a one-on-one match against Perry Saturn. Following Raven's actions last week, Commissioner Regal announced that Raven would not be booked for this show, both as punishment and to keep the peace before No Way Out. But Regal also recognized that Austin's head wasn't in the right place. The champion was furious, unpredictable, and demanding to fight someone, anyone, connected to Raven. Regal looked over the roster, searching for a link, and came to one conclusion. Raven doesn't really have friends in the WWF, but he did have one old associate from his WCW days, Perry Saturn. And for Regal, that was close enough. Saturn was declared guilty by association and thrown into the main event with the Rattlesnake. Austin came out swinging, fists flying, stomps in the corner, pure rage on display. Saturn tried to fight back, landing a few desperate shots, but Austin was relentless. Every strike, every suplex, every stomp felt like a message to Raven. This is what's waiting for you at No Way Out. The aftermath was brutal. Saturn was out cold as medical staff rushed to the ring. As the show went off the air, Saturn was loaded onto a stretcher and taken from the arena, while Austin glared up the ramp, waiting for Raven. Next time we see the Rattlesnake, it'll be No Way Out. The No Way Out pay-per-view opened with absolute carnage, the Hardcore Championship, inside Hell in a Cell. For weeks, Guerrero has been living on borrowed time. Ever since stealing the Hardcore title from Kane under 24/7 rules, he's done everything he can to avoid the wrath of the Big Red Machine, sprinting through crowds, dodging backstage ambushes, and surviving by sheer luck. But tonight, Commissioner William Regal made sure there would be no more running. Locked inside the cell, there was nowhere for Eddie to hide. From the opening moments, Eddie tried to use his speed and cunning to stay one step ahead, ducking and weaving, throwing weapons at Kane just to create space. The cell itself quickly became part of the punishment. Kane repeatedly hurled Eddie into the steel. Eddie fought back valiantly, showing the heart of a champion, but the power of Kane was too much to overcome. The finish came when Kane caught Eddie mid-air before delivering an emphatic chokeslam. It was artistic, it was chaotic, and it was the perfect way to kick off No Way Out. Eddie Guerrero's reign as Hardcore Champion ends the same way it began, surrounded by chaos, but this time there was no escape. The second match of No Way Out featured the New Age Outlaws defending the WWF Tag Team Championships against Mick Foley and his mystery partner, a match that carried weeks of build-up and plenty of personal bad blood. As the Outlaws made their entrance, cocky as ever, they taunted Foley, daring his mystery partner to show himself. The crowd waited in suspense, and then the arena erupted as Terry Funk's music hit. The hardcore legend had returned. The two men, bonded by blood, barbed wire, and history, were reunited. Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, side by side once again. The Outlaws suddenly didn't look so confident. From the start, it was a wild brawl. Foley and Funk brought that trademark hardcore energy, turning the tag title match into a fight more than a wrestling contest. Billy Gunn used his athleticism to keep Funk grounded, while Road Dogg tried to outsmart Foley, but the challengers refused to stay down. Late in the match, the tide turned when Chyna appeared on the stage. The Outlaws looked relieved until she stepped up behind Road Dogg and leveled him with a forearm shot to the back of the head. The Chyna had just turned her back on DX. Foley took advantage, dropping Billy Gunn with a double-arm DDT. Foley and Terry Funk are the new WWF Tag Team Champions. The arena filled with cheers as Foley and Funk embraced, holding the titles high. Chyna stood at the end of the ramp, arms crossed, watching the fallout as the Outlaws looked on in shock. After weeks of dominance, DX finally took a major hit. Chyna's betrayal and the crowning of new champions mark a major turning point, and for the first time in months, it feels like the balance of power in the WWF might finally be shifting. Next up at No Way Out was a match with massive implications. William Regal versus Kurt Angle. What had started weeks ago as a power struggle of ego and manipulation had now become a fight for control of the entire WWF. Both men were already in the ring when suddenly Mr. McMahon appeared on the Titantron. Gentlemen, I've decided to raise the stakes. Tonight isn't just about pride, it's about power. Regal, you're fighting for your job. If Kurt Angle wins, he becomes the new WWF commissioner. The crowd erupted, and Regal's expression told the whole story. The pressure had just skyrocketed. Angle smirked, clearly loving every second of it. From the opening bell, both men treated this like the biggest match of their careers. What followed was a technical masterpiece: chain wrestling, reversals, and constant counterattacks. Regal used every ounce of his mat-based skill, targeting Angle's arms to neutralize the angle lock, while Angle responded by focusing on Regal's legs, wearing him down with relentless precision. But in the end, Angle's drive, and perhaps his ruthlessness, proved too much. After a grueling 20 minutes, Angle transitioned into the ankle lock dead center in the ring. Regal fought it with everything he had, clawing, twisting, refusing to quit, but the pain was too much. Finally, he tapped out. The bell rang. Kurt Angle had won. The WWF has entered a new era, one ruled by the smug, self-proclaimed model of integrity himself, Commissioner Kurt Angle. Fresh off his victory over William Regal, Kurt Angle wasted no time exercising his newfound power. Still in his ring gear, sweat-soaked but grinning from ear to ear, Angle grabbed a microphone in the center of the ring and proudly declared that a new era of excellence and integrity had officially begun. He went on to say that, as a man of integrity, he couldn't stand by and watch unworthy competitors get title opportunities, taking a direct shot at Raven, calling him a freeloader who stumbled into a main event he doesn't deserve. For now, he said it was time to look ahead to after No Way Out and determine who would become the next #1 contender for the WWF Championship. And of course, he decided that he himself should be part of that match. Angle officially announced that later tonight, the previously scheduled triple threat #1 contenders match will now become a fatal four-way featuring Triple H, The Undertaker, the Canadian Crippler, and now, by special commissioner's ruling, ruling Kurt Angle. The crowd booed loudly as Angle smirked and raised his arms triumphantly, declaring that it's not favoritism, it's justice. The stakes were high in the next bout, a fatal four-way match to determine the next #1 contender for the WWF Championship. By his own decree, newly crowned Commissioner Kurt Angle had inserted himself into the match. Angle made his entrance last, still wearing his ring gear from earlier, but now, notably, sporting a neck brace. Whether it was legitimate pain from his war with Regal or pure theatrics, no one could tell for sure. Either way, Angle looked worse for wear. All four men fought like they had something to prove, and in their own ways, they did. Triple H, still reeling from DX's recent setbacks, was desperate to reassert dominance. The Crippler brought his ruthless technical precision, targeting anyone within reach, and The Undertaker commanded the ring with authority. Then, as the crowd roared, Undertaker hoisted Angle high into the air and delivered a massive last ride in the center of the ring. The Undertaker is the new #1 contender. Angle lay motionless, clutching his neck brace in agony. His plan to handpick his own destiny had spectacularly backfired. The night culminated in absolute devastation. This rivalry had turned deeply personal. Ever since Raven's sneak attack on Austin weeks ago, and the even more dramatic incident involving Debra, this match wasn't just about the title, it was about revenge and payback. The bell rang and Austin wasted no time. He charged Raven before the introductions were even finished, pummeling him with fists, boots, and pure rage. Raven managed to create separation by tossing a chair into Austin's face, then slammed him through the announce table moments later, proving that he wasn't just here to survive, he wanted to win. Chairs, kendo sticks, and steel steps all came into play. Austin dished out punishment with relentless intensity, while Raven used every equalizer he could find to slow down the rattlesnake. At one point, Raven sent Austin crashing through a hot dog stand. Moments later, Austin responded with a brutal suplex onto the entrance ramp. Midway through the match, the referee got caught in the crossfire, taking a hard, accidental shot that knocked him completely out. With no one to stop him, Austin seized the moment. He caught Raven, kicked him in the gut, and hit a thunderous stone-cold stunner. The crowd roared as Austin went for the cover, but the referee was down. Then, everything changed. The lights dimmed, and the sound of a gong echoed through the arena. The fans exploded as Limp Bizkit's Rollin' hit the speakers. It was The Undertaker. Moments later, the dead man roared down the ramp on his motorcycle, circling the ring before climbing inside. Austin, confused and furious, squared up to him, shouting for Taker to bring it. Without hesitation, The Undertaker grabbed Austin, lifted him high, and delivered a devastating last ride. Taker stood over the fallen champion for a moment, glaring down, then turned and left the ring without a word. The referee began to stir just as Raven, dazed but aware, crawled over Austin and covered him. In one of the biggest upsets in wrestling history, Raven is the new champion. Did The Undertaker do this to settle a score, payback for Austin interfering in his match weeks ago? Or did he have a far more calculated motive, ensuring his own title shot would come against an easier target in Raven instead of the relentless Stone Cold?